So pour a glass of craft beer, we can do this. Yeah.
Do you guys want to try the cherry milk stout?
Yes.
Tom Green?
Yes.
Never been scared.
Absolutely.
Fantastic.
Yes, what was the inspiration with adding some fruit?
And how did you
to
get in
that
touch with
Yeah, how did
Tom
that
Green?
come
So
about?
That's
the
cool
Tom
story. There's a
story.
great story behind it.
Yeah, it's an awesome story actually. So I grew up as a huge Tom Green fan, but never knew him.
Like in his rap days or in his like...
I started off because growing up in the area, so we'd go see Organized Rhyme play. I remember one show with like them wearing, laundry baskets on their head and throwing
Amazing.
bread into the crowd.
Classic
He was
Tom Green.
hold up, he was a rapper, he's an MC?
Yeah, he had bars too.
For real?
I'm not even joking.
Yeah, he's actually really talented.
Very
Where's he from,
talented
Toronto?
rapper. Ottawa.
He's an Ottawa boy.
Yeah.
Oh, shit.
And
That explains a lot.
yeah, exactly. One second here.
Yeah, hey, take your time.
So he went and got himself all famous, and then
And he had the TV show and the...
TV show, movies,
Yeah,
everything. And he lives in LA now, but his parents still live in the area.
All right.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers.
Cheers. Ooh, I love that lactose nose. Very subtle in the end.
Yeah,
Like it.
This is a great. Was this 5 still?
5'6".
5'6". Nice.
But he'd come back to Ottawa on a regular basis to visit his parents and his buddies, and when he'd go out with his friends, they'd go out for beers, and they
course,
quite often found
naturally.
themselves having
Right.
a lug tread or
Yeah.
something else that we were brewing. He's maybe sort of calmed down his touring schedule a little bit now, but at the time he was doing hundreds of stand-up shows a year.
Right.
And kind of, part of his thing was after his show, he'd like to have a beer and talk to the crowd. And he had this idea, like, how cool would it be if it was
my own
like
beer.
my beer?
Yeah.
And so he asked one of his buddies to kind of scope us out. And I guess his buddy came back with a good report. And so one day I'm in the office and I get a phone call and it's like, hey, it's Tom. I'm like, whoa, this is cool. And so he's like, he tells me that basically.
Yeah.
And he says, would you like to make a beer with me? And I said, well, I'm a huge fan, so I'd love to do this. But I'm also, a firm believer that if we're going to do this, we got to do it legitimately. We can't just slap your face on lug tread.
Absolutely.
We have to make a real Tom Green beer, and it has to somehow speak to you. It has to work. And it literally took us a year to figure this out.
Wow.
We've since done lots of collabs with non-brewers, like everyone from Margaret Atwood to the hardcore band DOA.
Yeah.
But this was the first time we'd worked with someone who wasn't a brewer. So that process took forever to figure out because we're like, well, what kind of malts do you want to use? And he's like,
What's
I
a
don't know,
malt?
really.
I like beer.
Yeah.
Help me out here.
Beer good.
And it wasn't until sort of the watershed moment was when we started talking about his body of work. So we were like, oh, well, what if the beer, somehow related to some of the stuff you did? And, so he had some pretty bizarre
Are you referring to the
stuff
stunt with the milk bag and the lactose? Am I going in the right direction?
You
there?
absolutely.
Okay.
So the milk, drinking milk right out of a cow's udder.
Yeah.
He did a lot of work with milk back in the day. And so we're like, oh, how cool would this be if we made a milk
Lactose.
stout? Because, again, it was a style that in Ontario you couldn't find.
Right.
There was Charlevoix makes a really good one in Quebec, but very difficult to get in Ontario. And we're like, so it's a kind of rare, legit craft style. And so we sat down, we brought Tom to the Manx in Ottawa, gave him some of the Charlevoix milk stout, and said, this is like an example of the style, and this is how we think we could make it a little bit different. He's like, this is great. So we started working on it. We made just a sort of a pilot batch to start with, and there was a festival in Toronto that was kind of, they decided to feature collaborations with non-brewers. So we're like, oh, that works out well. We have this.
Yeah.
So we submitted that, and they gave an award for sort of the one that was voted most wonderful or whatever. And the award was actually a listing in the LCBO stores.
Nice.
And there's like 450 LCBO stores, so a listing in the
Amazing.
LCBO
It's
is
huge.
like that's
Yeah,
a
it's a
lot
good
of
look.
beer.
Yeah.
And so when we won, it's like, hey Tom, I guess we're moving this
I guess we gotta
into
brew more
production
of
here.
this.
Yeah, and he's been just so much fun to work with. He he legitimately loves the beer. We have to ship it to him all the time.
Nice.
And he's brought our beer on the Jimmy Fallon show. He's brought it to all sorts of cool people around the world, and he's just always talking about it. He's always promoting it.